Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Bay City Planning Commission for March 18th, 2025 in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight we have Commissioners Dennis Bonacek, Commissioner Whitney Anderson, Commissioner Sheila Turbot, Commissioner Mike Burns, and myself, Douglas Rise, staff Terry Multane, Lisa Griffiths. We will move right into approval of the minutes from the past meeting. Terry, before we have a motion, I did note that two of the cases that we had tabled, we had postponed them instead of putting them back on the table. That would be 1021 Broadway, Torrey Jackson, SU 2404. And which one did we? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the minutes from the February 19th Planning Commission be approved.
I second.
I have a motion and second for approval of the February 19th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Yeah, it's real hard to hear you guys.
The minutes are good as they stand for tonight. We have a motion for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move into public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda for tonight who wishes to comment on something, please come to the podium, state your name, sign the register, and you'll have 5 minutes. I'm sorry, pardon? If you have a comment, please come to the podium. Okay, seeing no one come forward for public comments, we'll return to the regular order of the agenda. So we have tabled cases, but in reviewing the minutes, 2 cases were postponed and 1 was put back on the table. So from the minutes, we had case SU 2404, 1021 Broadway, which we had put back on the table. Terry, is there any further action on this case, or should we dispose of it?
Dispose of it.
I would entertain a motion to remove from the table case SU 2404 for 1021 Broadway.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second to remove SU 2404 from the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We've had no action on this now for several months. It doesn't appear that this is an ongoing business anymore, and I think we can dispose of this item. How best should we address that, Terry?
Well, I guess it would just be a motion, well, it wouldn't be a motion to approve or deny. Is it not in the postponement tabling where if it's picked up to the planning commission would vote to just, I guess, table it indefinitely, or, I don't know, I guess I never had that canceled like that, other than just deny it. Yeah, deny it then. Yeah.
Having no further action from the appellant on this case, and it appears that the business is not in operation, is that? It is closed, so there's no reason for us to continue to have this on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to deny the application for 1021 Broadway. Tory Jackson?
So move.
I have motion and support to deny case SU 2404 for 1021 Broadway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, then we can move to case SPR 2406, 603 Columbus Avenue. This was a postponed item, so we don't need to take action to remove it from the table. We'll just take it up now in our regular course. So this was a site plan review. We are not required to have a public hearing on site plan review. So staff report, do we have any updates on this case, Terry?
I did receive a site plan late last week. I myself did not do a complete review of it. What I had included in the packet was the unrevised 2025 plan. So that was the plan that came to the meeting on 9/18 of 24. So I did not get a chance to compare these with that received site plan. It was something that I told them that it was late, but I would place it on the agenda to try to get a decision made on the site plan. What has changed is the earlier positioning of the building was not working out. So here on the revised site plan, you see a building that is up close towards Columbus Avenue, and then it has the setbacks there. I can't quite tell you the dimension right there, but it is a 0 setback requirement, so whatever that setback is would be meeting site plan requirements. They indicated clear about where the dumpster had to be moved in order to accommodate the traffic movement coming from the alley. So you see that there's directional signage or directional arrows pointing to that. I do believe, other than maybe seeing a landscaping plan, that it would meet site plan requirements from what I see. except for, I think I did note, maybe it was the next one, the parking spaces do have to be 9 by 19, and I think I was seeing, no, okay. So yeah, everything appears to meet the site plan requirements.
Is there anyone from the applicant who wishes to come to the podium and make comment on the application? State your name and sign the register for us, please. Make sure you speak right directly into the microphone, sir.
Yeah, so Vishal Rathore, 111 East Hampton Road, Essexville, Michigan, 48732. 48732. All right. What was what?
This is an opportunity for you to provide any additional information or comments that you wish to have us consider.
Any comments? No. Yeah, I know it's gonna be a nice addition to the city. His Uptown is coming up right there. It's gonna add on nice, and you know we're gonna get some. It's gonna get you know it's gonna get some attraction, people coming around. It's gonna look good, I guess, is all I can say. I don't really know what to say, honestly.
Note looking here is there should be information about how the lot will be lit. Oftentimes there's going to be wall packs on the side of the building facing the parking, so you do have that opportunity. It's probably maybe the best lighting scenario, maybe looking at this from the standpoint of that adjacent residential area, but you would have to have lighting to make sure that it doesn't impact the residential use here. So when your plans come in for the building plan review, that will need to show where the light fixtures would be, and it would be anyway because that would be part of the electrical permit, but I will ask to see that myself.
Okay. Yep, that shouldn't be a problem. Shouldn't be a problem.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
If I may, through the chair. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a couple issues that I need to have some input on. There's no sidewalk in front of this building. So how are people going to get to the doorway? The other issue I have is your van accessible space is not ADA compliant. The very first ADA space has to be both spaces have to be 8 feet wide. The striped space has to be on the passenger side of the parking space so that a van can pull in and it can be discharged to that side of the vehicle. I'm going to go through the chair to Terry. Are these trash cans blue bins, or are we requiring a dumpster like I've seen at every 7-Eleven in town?
The applicant bins. I don't believe those are trash or a dumpster. Is that correct, Vishal?
Yeah, those are basically, extra, so I'm thinking of having maybe one, maybe two trash bins is the most we would need, if anything, I don't know what the requirements are. I do got access to a dump trailer and a truck, and I live out in the country, or, I could even take it to White's. There's things, that could be done to bypass that. I mean, and as far as the entrance to the front, it wouldn't be nothing to add concrete there and make an entrance. That'd be not an issue.
Where my mouse is right now, that appears to be the symbol for concrete at the very center of the front of the building. Mention on it, but it would be this from that point to that point.
If I may. So are you expecting your customers that park behind the building to walk all the way around to the front?
So if you were there at the property, you would see that there is clearly enough room for any car to pull in and out, including a whole semi-truck. Because I have been in and out of there with a Duramax Denali and a 12, 14-foot dump trailer continuously. It's not a problem. The alley right next to it provides more than enough space that is not being shown in the whole.
But you're not answering my question. How are customers getting into your building? Do they have to walk all
With
the
the
way
the doors that are going to be on the building.
So you will have doors right back here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's going to be two-way entry.
Okay.
Or, if we have to have a side door for a garbage man or, or somebody, like the delivery drivers, they will come through the side door if needed. And customers will have a door anywhere a door needs to be provided, or doors, etc., to, meet everyone's needs and maybe more.
I'm still concerned that you don't have enough space on the north side of the building to put a sidewalk, a parking space, and a cruise lane and make it work.
Yeah, because the fence right there, we're going to put a fence up on the north side.
Yeah, but-
That's going to give more room, so that's possible. So that's what we got there.
Through the chair to Terry, do we require grading and lighting matrix plans with submittals?
Plan is part of the site plan submittals that we do receive. It's always something that, again, staff has to we provide the checklist, so it's on the site plan review checklist. Oftentimes, the lighting isn't there, so then I have to get the lighting information put on there. So it is a requirement, but not always comes in the door that way.
At this point, I would make a motion to postpone this until our next meeting to give the applicant a chance to get with his engineer and fix this.
They're already on this. Yeah, there's a front door, there's a side door. It's there. I mean, I don't understand.
What
I don't
have
understand the concerns here. We've already, me, Terry, and C&D contractors, our C&D builders have already sat there and worked on this, on the grading and everything.
We don't have any elevations of the building. We don't know what it's gonna look like. We don't know where the doors are gonna go.
Right,
We
right,
do
but this
not
is
see
just.
a sidewalk.
This is just,
And a sidewalk is gonna take up room that you do not have.
well, the sidewalk is already there.
Not out in front, I'm talking behind your building. When a car pulls up back there, where does the person getting out of the car go to enter your building? Because if
Well,
there's
there
cars
can
parked
be,
all
there
along
can be
there,
accommodations being made to the plants there to meet requirements.
What you would see here, and because my name was included, I will make the statement that, yes, there were several meetings, there was a lot of dialogue, but I did not receive this plan until Friday. So that's a fact. So having said that, what we typically see right here is a sidewalk, because then you get out of your vehicle, you walk past the sidewalk, just like any 7-Eleven,
With an awning over it.
and then you go into the door. What he's asking, if this is the wall of the building and there is a door here, I don't understand myself how somebody parked there, they can't walk anywhere. If this is a building wall, they park their car, they have to walk this way and then come back through somewhere to find the front entrance. Because there's not enough room between this curb stop or wheel chalk and the front wall of that building. They're going to park and be forced to walk backwards, not towards the building. Now, yes, somebody will jump and walk over the top of it, but that's not the design intent.
No, my thought was that initially that the entrance was gonna be on the south side, right there, yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
You will get traffic both ways. You'll get traffic, coming from the future development across the street to the west. And then, these types of storefronts on Columbus are typically accessible from the sidewalk, so it appears that would be. But I do see, and I hope you see, what's happening back here. There's nowhere, once you park the car, you're going to be
all right,
walking.
so is it possible to shorten the building up from the sides? Maybe take about 9-10-ish foot off? No. Can we take 4 or 5 foot or 5 to 10 foot off of the building on the north side and build a sidewalk right there? So I mean, so would you guys approve for that to take down the dimension of the building, to take it back about
It's not,
8 foot? How big of a sidewalk do you need for people to walk? What's the code?
I don't know if there is a code, but it's not up to us to tell you that. We have an
Okay.
engineer that should know this stuff,
All right, okay.
reflected in the drawing.
All right.
And as I said, your ADA space does not meet requirements, so you may also need to get a variance for not having enough parking. There's a lot to consider here. My motion to postpone stands. Waiting on a second.
I'd like to go through the rest of the items that we would do in a normal.
We can always return to my motion.
Your motion is noted, and will come to fore when it's appropriate. Are there any other questions to the applicant from staff or commissioners?
No. Thank you.
I will open this up then for any public comment. Anyone else from the public who wishes to make comment on the proposed request, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, there's no requirement for the applicant to respond. We can take up our discussion now. We have a motion on the floor to postpone. Do we have second?
Second,
I-
the motion, should we not detail exactly what we're looking to
Yeah,
have
it's-
added on the future site plan?
And they're leaving. We have a motion and a second to postpone. Terry, well, let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Terry, can you get with the applicant and provide him a little more direction on what he needs to provide for us in the site plan?
Yeah.
It was not an appropriate forum for us to be having a design discussion with an applicant. That's not our role.
Right. Sure, I will be happy to do that, and if Shaw could contact me tomorrow, I'll set something up as soon as possible. We'll have that discussion. Lizzie?
Thank you. That item will be postponed until next month.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to, again, this was a postponed item, not a tabled item, the street right-of-way vacation on McGraw Street, case V 2401. Terry, do we have enough information now for us to take action?
Mr. Chair, I am going to recuse myself and step out into the hall as my business has an interest in this case, and I'd appreciate being told when I can come back in.
We will so inform you. Thank you for bringing that up. Dennis?
Let me take a quick look at the audience here and see who's here.
I think last month we left it that there had been an agreement that had been reached, but had not been fully
Signed.
negotiated between the parties.
Yep.
We know where that stands now?
Yeah, as of just a few hours ago, everybody had a chance to review, as far as the two parties, the completed access agreement, and then the resolution was prepared and provided, even though that resolution typically doesn't have to come out until it's for the city commission. But I did prepare the resolution, so I have the resolution, and I have an email from them. It was kind of late today that we were making sure we were all on the same page, but I do believe that we can move forward with the recommendation tonight, and that the access agreements would be signed and available for the portion of the city commission recommendation or action.
Oh, then this is going to require a full public hearing. I mean, if we're going to go through the process for making a motion and approving a recommendation to the city commission, then we need to go through the steps that would be a part of that process.
Yes, there's two public hearings, actually. It would be the public hearing of the planning commission, making a recommendation whether to vacate or not vacate. And then that goes to the city commission. There's 4 consecutive publications, and then it comes back to the city commission after those 4 weeks, and then there's a public hearing, and then they decide whether to vacate it or not. So the first reading, when they first receive it, is just basically they're receiving it to give direction to city staff to publish it for consecutive weeks.
So for our purposes, then, I'll need a motion for opening a public hearing on case V 2401 for the vacation of the unimproved portion of McGraw Street west of Harrison.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and second to conduct a public hearing on case V 2401. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are in public hearing. We've received our staff report all kind of ahead of time. Is there anyone from the applicant that is here that wishes to make comment? forward. I will open it up for public comment of anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on this application. Please come to the podium, state your name. You'll have 5 minutes for comment. Seeing no one come forward, there will be no applicant response. We can move to close the public hearing. Do I have motion for closing the public hearing?
I move to close.
Support.
I have a motion and support to close the public hearing on case V2401. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll now move into the business portion of this case. Any commissioner wish to make comment on the case? I think
Terry, at this point, what are we exactly waiting for to finalize that the two parties are in agreement?
I didn't download and save to the file here on the PDF the email that I had, but there were emails back and forth today to make sure that this was ready, and I reassured everybody that it is ready because we do have, the resolution. They have worked out in both parties. You see what happened when the access agreement first came for planning department review. It was written by an attorney that included the city of Bay City. So as you're reading the access agreement, there's statements about the city of Bay City, but the city of Bay City is really not a party to the access agreement. Their responsibility and role is in the vacation of the right-of-way, but we didn't need to be party to the access agreement because that's all between the two of them and how they're going to work that out. Once it gets vacated, it will no longer be city property or right-of-way. So it really is a private. Where my information comes from is that resolution. And I did pull up the resolution, and the main thing on the resolution that they wanted reassurances was the fact that utility easements are being retained. And this was vetted by the city attorney. So, for example, it says, whereas an easement for current and future utilities will be retained. He had recommended that future utilities, this way we don't have, there was a question in the past about the reservation of an easement, and the way the easements were written in the past, it was specific to the current utilities in the right-of-way. So there was a recommendation from the city attorney to add future utilities because we don't know if that easement area that we're retaining for the existing utilities, we can't rule out that maybe something in the future might need to be in that easement also. So that language was changed to include the opportunity for that. And then the easements are being retained. It says the city reserves unto itself an easement for utilities, current and future, over the entirety of the right-of-way. So I do believe that this is ready. I wish in the email that I received, it would have said we're good to go because it did not answer that question, but I have responded to each of the emails today saying that we're good to go. And I did not receive a no, we shouldn't. So my position is this is ready. We should make a recommendation. The other comment that I want to make is if you look at the staff report, you'll notice that it is a city code of ordinance, so it's not within the zoning ordinance. It has its own section in a code of ordinance called vacation of public right-of-ways, and then it's section 94, those numbers there. So there is a distinction between the action that the Planning Commission is taking under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act and what rules and policies that we follow there. Here, we're following this ordinance. And what the recommendation, or let's see, I'll read it right here. The Planning Commission shall consider whether the proposed vacation is necessary for the health, welfare, comfort, safety of the people in the city, and shall file a report with the Planning Commission as to whether or not the vacation is recommended and the reasons therefore. Such report shall be received by the City Commission and made part of the official proceedings. Now, in the past, there was, and I expect to still continue, would be, we have the meeting minutes where the recommendation with some of the reasons are included, and then I would give to the City Commission the same staff report that the Planning Commission received, because it does say such report. And in all the past practices, it's been the staff report to the Planning Commission, and then it's been the meeting minutes to the Planning Commission. That makes up the report that is sent to the City Commission. So, having said that, it does just give you the ability to have consideration of health, safety, comfort, welfare, and then here the recommended and reasons for it. The purpose of this was to have two businesses continue to operate the way they've been using that public right-of-way. Both of them are in agreement now that this is taking place, that with that written agreement, what has been practiced in the past will be written into that agreement to allow it to continue. Because what had happened is we got to the meetings and each of them agreed that they're entering others' property in order to do the truck movements through that area. So Merson probably has a less of a need, but then Quality Bag, he went into detail about how he has to come over, hug that right away, even go onto Merson's property and then get his trucks backed in. So this agreement will actually put into place and have it recorded to make sure that that arrangement that has been working is actually written into the property records. And the one concern that the Quality Bag had did have to do with the utilities, making sure that the easements were being retained, and that is taking place. Easements are being retained. So Quality Bag has been reassured that when it's vacated, the city is still responsible for that line in the vacated right-of-way or property, but from the lead to the building will continue to be private, just as if it was normal and it was a right-of-way. So you keep the utilities there, you protect them by way of the easement within the resolution, and then if the city ever does have to go into that easement to do the repair on the existing line, then that's what they'll do, and then they don't perform service when it leaves the right-of-way and it goes to the building. So from the right-of-way to the building is the responsibility of the private property owner. So if a sewer was to fail, they would have to call a sewer company, have it scoped, and find out if it's between the right-of-way and the building, then that would be the property owner's fix. If it's in the right-of-way, then the city would fix it.
So does the form of our motion need to address all of our normal standards that we would have in a special use or another item requiring a public hearing? Or do we only cite the items that are listed in the city ordinances?
You know, in the past, I think it's been as simple as the recommendation that is on page 3. It says, "The Planning Commission recommends to the City Commission that McGraw Street, west of Harrison Street, west of the Harrison Street, west right-of-way line, be vacated pursuant to that chapter." Now here, what it's lacking is any of the reasons or justifications. But here you have only 2 property owners impacted, and unlike other alleys where there might be, several property owners, here it is between 2 parties. They are recommending that the alley be vacated or the street be vacated themselves. So in my view, their own actions is a finding of fact. And then just list that and maybe another reason that it does work out, and that's the recommendation. So I don't really have anything more to go by because that's the way it's been done. We've had the staff report, and then we have the meeting minutes, and that's what's provided to the City Commission.
Close the public hearing?
I think you did. Yeah.
So we're ready to take action then. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the request and a recommendation to the City Commission to effectuate the vacation of the unused portion of McGraw Street.
Yeah, and it wouldn't even have to be approved because according to the ordinance that I just read, the Planning Commission is only recommending to the City Commission. So once it gets into the City Commission, right here is the hearing and final action. It's too much to read now, but the authority and the decision to actually vacate it resides with the City Commission. What the Planning Commission is doing is just reviewing it, kind of vetting it, if you want to think of it that way, before it gets to the City Commission and we publish it, at cost for 4 consecutive weeks. So it's kind of like get it to the Planning Commission, let them, understand it, and then out of that, have a recommendation to the City Commission, and then we're the ones that vote to approve to vacate it.
Right. We'd be moving to approve the recommendation.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I entertain a motion?
I move that Planning Commission recommend that the City Commission.
Point of order. Hold on. We just forgot that Dennis excused himself from the last case, but we forgot to go call him in. So I've got to get him back in. And he should have been hearing that. So I might have to repeat myself a little bit. We're going to talk about the McGraw right-of-way vacation. Oh, on this one.
What did you just do?
No, we didn't do anything. You're in the right spot. All right. I guess it doesn't matter then. Yeah. Well, no. Right, he's not supposed to be in the room still. My fault. My fault. All right. We don't want to forget you.
Right, Terry, question. With Dennis's recusal, we still have quorum. 4 is quorum, right?
Correct. We have a quorum, and that can be acted on.
We can proceed.
We can proceed. I'm sorry about that.
I move that the Planning Commission approve case V2401 street right-of-way vacation at McGraw Street, given that the 2 parties, businesses involved are in agreement, have an agreement, and that the city has agreement for maintaining the easement we recommend the city commission approve this vacation.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to the city commission for the approval of the vacation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
We move to the next case. I would like to say something about this ordinance. In the ordinance, it requires four publishings. Due to today's cost of publication, especially using the Bay City Times, it is costly to us to do that. I asked the city, in this ordinance, and the wording of the resolutions has been, for at least probably 100 years, consistent with the wording. Matter of fact, some of the earlier resolutions would use, more flowery terms, pleading and begging to, have it vacated. So it's kind of interesting to read some of the much earlier street vacation discussions. But the point that I wanted to make is I asked the city attorney if there was a way I could amend the ordinance to only have one public hearing at the Planning Commission and one public hearing at the City Commission, but only do one publication instead of the 4 consecutive weeks. So he looked into the law and said that there's no reason that it could not be changed. If it was changed the way I was recommending it, it would be able to meet law, and I wouldn't have to raise prices, because right now we would either have to raise the fee to cover those costs of all the publications, but I think by amending the ordinance and taking away this cost requirement, it'll save the city money, and it'll save the applicant money, because we won't have to increase the fee of this application to vacate, because we'll change the ordinance and only have one publication.
Thank you. Is that in the works, Terry?
It is on my desk to do. It is something that is a city commission action because of, it not being in the zoning code. But surely I would keep you abreast when I make that change. But it is on the list to do, make that amendment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can move on to new business now. Let Dennis get back in his seat. New business tonight, case SU 2504 for 2200 Broadway, requesting special use approval and site plan approval for a motor vehicle gas station containing 3 pump islands with a canopy. Existing building will be renovated to provide 2,148 square foot convenience store.
Yeah, I would just note that in the staff report, I do speak to the MDOT requirement. There has been discussion with the representative from the Transportation Service Center, so things are looking favorable for that review. Let me just read through some of these other comments. Of course, the engineering department will require any of the permits to work in the right-of-way. And then there's a comment down on the last one regarding the MDOT comment. And then in the staff report, I identify the zoning regulations that would apply. And in section 122-486, which is the standards for vehicle filling stations. And then the table kind of identifying whether it meets ordinance or what the ordinance says versus what the plan may say. And then some of the special use, you've maybe had a chance to read the comments there and some of the findings and facts. So at this time, I would ask some representative if they could come forward and maybe follow up on what I might have stated, would be appreciated.
We'll need a motion to go into a public hearing on this item, first of all.
Move to go into public hearing for this site?
Support.
We have motion and support to conduct a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we have the representative for 2200 Broadway. Please state your name, sign and register for us, please.
On? Yes?
Yep, if the green light is there.
Okay. Okay, good. My name is Roddy Beslike. I'm with Fenton Land Surveying and Engineering. I've been talking to, God, I butcher his name all the time, yeah. Matt Malik, today and yesterday. He couldn't make it. He wanted me to come up here and kind of follow up with basically for the special land use. That's what we're trying to get. I know it states in here, we're trying for site plan approval. And I kind of recognize all the comments. We need a landscaping plan. We need a site lighting plan, a grid kind of photometric plan. But I guess we didn't want to push forward unless we knew we had the special land use, right? So realistically, I think we're just here for special land use tonight. But he's got basically an old McDonald's, from what I understand, that he wants to remodel and then put 3 pumps under a canopy and have a gas station, basically converted to a gas station. I guess the McDonald's been closed for several years, so basically kind of update the site. You guys made a comment as to putting a fence down the west side of the property. I think it was meant to be on the south side. We got a church or something to the west, and we got an actual residential to the south. So I guess I'd like clarification on that.
Because to the west here, that is residential.
Churches, too?
Yeah, and churches are typically in our R2 or R1, and this one's zoned R2. So it does pertain to that church, and, yeah.
You guys are making a recommendation for us to put a fence down that side, correct?
That is, the staff report is prepared by myself, and then I provide that information to them, and they consider whether it's warranted or not. But yeah, based on the zoning ordinance, it does protect. Now here, and again, we're talking about the redevelopment of sites, and I've talked in the past about balancing out existing site versus the new site, so it is a balancing act. My recommendation on this property line, even though it's not a 6-foot fence, I didn't measure it, but it doesn't appear to be a 6-foot fence, but my recommendation is to just leave that existing fence, and there's a good picture of it.
They replaced part of it, right, recently?
Yeah, they did. It looks like somebody did some work. I think it's up in the staff report. I think that's up in the staff report. There's a picture. Let me grab it.
We looked on Google Earth. That's what it showed on Google Earth. Like portion of that fence got updated.
Well, I have Google Earth views of it, but I don't see it in the report. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there is an existing fence. If I had street view, I'd pull it up, but I don't think I do have that. But yeah, there's a fence that runs along this property line, and then because this is residential, today a fence would be, or some type of screening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could do like a hedgerow?
You could do a hedgerow. The only problem with a hedgerow is it does, at that point, call it a green belt, so it would have to be 5 foot wide.
Okay.
Because
so if we do that, we had to go 5 foot wide.
Right.
All right.
Because the option is either 5 foot wide with the greenery or no greenery and just the fence.
Okay. And with the room that we got over there, we're probably going to go with a fence, to be honest. We've also talked about, you mentioned something about the dumpster. Are we going to leave it there in your comments?
Question is, to me, I would say yes, because again, it's an existing situation. the ordinance does call for dumpsters to be 10 foot off the property line, but this right here is a, oh, I wish I had the picture.
Like 3.
It's a brick constructed wall for the screenery or the screening, and then the dumpster would be in there.
So typical, like McDonald's, they match the brick with the building?
Yeah, I would say the condition of that dumpster is very good. You know, it's doing its purpose. I don't see why it should be removed. And again, it's an existing non-conforming location. But again, it's a substantial wall that screens that dumpster.
Like you also mentioned, like I said, site lighting and landscaping, we will provide that stuff, again, pending our special use if we get it tonight. And I have, we kind of read through the comment, I have no problem with any of the comments that you guys made here.
Let me go up a few pages in your report, because prior to the discussion with MDOT, what you had here was the drive-through was on this south side of the building, and then people would either park here for, you know, waiting for their food, or they would exit. And if I'm not mistaken, these were both exits, and then there was this entrance here. With MDOT's desire to close curb cuts when they have the opportunity, it was required, recommended at first, but in order to get the permit, it's required, to eliminate this access right here. And let me make sure that what I just said is what they have. Yeah, right there. Now you'll notice this does not, let me make sure I got the right drawing.
It shows us a one-way out, it's not the intent.
Well, I guess I thought it was going to be clear here what this is,
It's all pavement.
right? But there's no access coming out,
No,
right,
that-
right,
we took
right.
That
yeah.
one out, yep, and he widened the one that was to the south down there.
Okay,
But it's gonna be a in and a right, basically a one-way in and come up, you're gonna be able to go right and left. So we're gonna make it wide enough for people to go right and left out of there, and then one car coming in.
and what we're looking at here in this gray area was what was previously there, or what's there currently.
Yes,
Right, yep, so this matches up with the drawing
so that's all grass right now.
before that, showing this is the area that's being reworked. Is there a reason for keeping this,
To drive lanes for two-way access, right, kind of through there. So when they're done, if they pull in off of, over to the right, kind of pull in, so that they could kind of go around the building to the left and kind of get out that way. So it's
Okay.
kind of gonna be a drive lane.
okay, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Kind of a two-way drive lane right through there.
So the gray areas on that particular plan are going to be, what, grassed areas then?
They're gonna be pavement, they're basically, we're making a site more pervious. So we have to add asphalt for drive lanes to go around the canopy. That's all gonna be asphalt. All those shaded areas are basically gonna be asphalt.
Asphalt, okay.
But with his comment, one way or another, we gotta put some landscaping in, so it's not gonna be that close to the right of way. We gotta have some room for some landscaping.
Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Through the chair,
Dennis?
I am looking at this plan and I am in disbelief as to how bad the dimensioning on here reflects what our code requires. There is no way people are going to be able to move through this site with as little room as is available on the north side of the building. I'm looking at the parking spaces. I don't see how wide they are because there's no dimension, but the length is 18 and a half feet when the requirement is 19. Then I look at above the parking space and it's like 10.8 feet. Our two-lane cruise lane width is 24 feet. So all the way around this canopy, I'm looking at 18, 20, is that 16? I can't tell, these drawings are too small, but I just don't see the dimensionality meeting the requirements. And I'm just looking at the way this is set up, getting traffic to move through here would be an absolute nightmare.
You look at this corner right here, you have, and to keep in mind, the requirements of MDOT does force the traffic to utilize CAS, which is the whole intent of MDOT's requirements. So you have to look at this as a busy entrance for the gas station, because this is out only, so then you're right here coming in. If this was a one-way sending people around, that would be wide enough, but it is not wide enough as a two-lane. And this area here is not wide enough for a two-lane. This would have to be a one-way. So anything that's like he had stated, anything less than 24 is the next dimension is 12 for one-way. So you've got 12 for one-way, and you've got 24 if it's two-way traffic. So somewhere, this could be a one-way, but yeah, there is an issue here with the ability for cars. They can't be dual or both ways within 10.8 feet. So somewhere, this plan definitely will have to walk through where
One-ways will be.
the traffic circulation is, and there would have to be one-ways. Let's see. Come around. Yeah.
If I may,
Commissioner,
through the chair, we just got done talking about having a sidewalk in front of the parking spaces, and I'm looking at what may be a sidewalk, but it doesn't look very wide. One of the issues I would have with this is getting a pedestrian pinned between the building and a car that does not stop into the parking space but continues forward and parks on top of the sidewalk, overlaps it with the front of the car. That could become an issue.
And we got a choice of either widening in that sidewalk or putting a bumper block in front of it so that the car doesn't hang over, one or the other, right? Usually, and again, these aren't my plans. I'm helping a friend of a friend kind of thing. I work for Fenton Land Surveying. We'd had more detail on our stuff, but anyway. Right, usually we use 7. That way, if they do pull up to it, I still got 5 feet to play with, right? That's typically what we use. There is some stuff that I'm gonna have to modify on here because he's kind of given us the job as far as I know now. So there is some things that we're gonna have to do.
Within the staff report, going back up to the standards, let me get back up to the staff report here. Yeah, probably right here. So there's the minimum lot area, then that is met, the frontage is met. Here's the information about the setbacks of, just speaking of the canopy structure, 10 feet. So there's some room there that could be moved. Again, another dimension of 10 feet on the front yard, 10 feet on the side yard. This is just talking about the gasoline pumps being located, off-street parking, and then the egress we addressed because of the MDOT statement on the Broadway frontage.
Gary?
Yes.
Through the chair to the applicant, did you say you were going to have right in, or you're going to have an entry off of Broadway?
Yeah, that was my initial thought, but after we got talking here, we might have to do a one-way. In all honesty, I'm thinking more and more one-way coming off. And again, is that Cass? I'm not familiar with this area.
Yeah, Cass would be the,
Northerly Road?
right.
Okay, so honestly, I'm looking more and more at it. We'd probably have to make it a one-way to pull in off of Cass and then come out on that other side street right there. That's what it looks like more and more.
Thank you.
Because that refrigerator thing is going to go too. That's up there. That's going to be gone too. Because realistically, we're thinking about putting the pump or the gas tank kind of on that side of the building over there.
Where is the entrance?
I want to say it's that notch out in that corner, but again, I'm not very familiar with
Right
it.
here.
For the building, I want to say it's the notch out in that corner. It'd be this northeast corner of the building. I want to say that's where the entrance
what
is,
that
right there,
is.
yeah.
But you don't know for certain.
I, honestly, like I said, it got thrown in here 2 days ago. I could look it up on Google Earth and just see, but I want to say it's in that corner right there. I mean, his intentions are to redo the outside of that building and remodel the inside anyway, so it's not going to look like a McDonald's when he's done.
We have any more questions from commissioners? Thank you, sir. Hang tight for us. We're going to open this up now for any public comments from anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on the proposed special use and site plan. Please come to the podium, state your name, sign the register, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Childs. I live at 617 36th Street in Bay City, 48708. Our house is actually like directly behind the church, but we can see the old building, we can see the 7-Eleven. Initially when we got the letter, our main concern was traffic and noise, like we can hear Broadway and Cass. It's not terrible. We come from a small town, so we know we moved to a city. I'm also definitely not opposed to putting a business into a vacant building. That's, I think, really good. I think we need that. But after listening to it, my concern would be the traffic flow. I feel like that's going to cause some horn honking, maybe some frustrations. Doesn't seem totally out of the, something you can't do. But we've also had issues of people hopping our fence. We haven't even been in the house for 8 months. We've had 3 separate instances that I've caught on our security camera of young kids jumping our fence to get to 7-Eleven or the park. And there was even an instance where I believe some kids attempted something at the 7-Eleven, and there were sirens, and we were on our back porch when they ran through with their backpacks. So a little scary, but with the hedge or the fence, I think that kind of eases our mind with people attempting, because then they'd have to jump the other fence too. But we just wanted to make sure that our concerns were heard, and I think I personally am a little reassured hearing from him and potentially what could happen. But yeah, keeping in mind the traffic and the layout, I think, is important. It's actually quite a small corner, so to have a one-way entry off Broadway and then Cass seems weird, because when I would have to go around it, but I would like to see it occupied and not vacant, with that being said, so. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? It is that corner? Okay. Does anyone else from the public wish to make comment on the application? Come forward. Does the applicant wish to respond to the comments that we received? Okay.
I did receive one comment. Let me go up to the desk here and get that. It is received March 7th by phone, Thomas Wright, 701 Cass Avenue. He is against it. There are enough of them, and that's the comment.
We had no other written comments submitted?
No, that's the only comment received.
I just noticed something else on here, if I may.
We're ready to move into the business portion.
Okay.
That would be to do it. We need to close the public hearing first.
Move to close the public hearing on SU 25-04.
Support?
Support.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing portion of this action, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we can move into the business session now. Dennis?
Through the chair to Terry, do the spaces at the pumps count as parking spaces?
Yes, the way the parking regulations read, it does. We do include that as the parking space for the fuel nozzle.
So if I'm looking at this and counting correctly, we need 12 spaces and there's only 11?
They weren't waiting on me though, were
That's what I'm seeing is 5 by the building. Yeah.
they? Yeah, jeez. Hang on, bear with me. I'm just gonna use this. Get this out of the way.
Sheila? Through the chair to Sheila. I just happened to notice, looking up at the box in the upper right where the parking calculation was made, that they had called for 12, and then I realized there was only 11.
It'd be rounded up. If it's
Just going by what's on the plan.
right. Well, let me get back up to my report here. See if I have this part of it right. Bear with me. I'll zoom it up a little. So section 122-381, additional parking space not required for change of use. Parking spaces will need to be properly striped. An ADA compliant space will be required. Circulation on the should. Well, I can answer that question by going up a little bit further, I think. Or down. Nope. Yeah, I should have put the parking, let me see if it's in this section here.
Yeah, your chart indicates that it's exempt from off-street parking.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where in the parking regulations, it does state, and normally I do call that out specifically to make sure that you're understanding that they're exempt. But I don't know if I have a copy of the zoning ordinance here. Yeah, I should probably do that. Yeah, if you could just give me a minute, I'll pull the zoning ordinance, and then, again, it details out that information, so I apologize. I meant to include it in the report because that question came up before, whether some zoning district was exempt or not. Because really, I think in the C2B is the only district that does require parking calculations, and this property is not zoned that, and I think as soon as I see that ordinance, it's going to exempt off-street parking requirements for the district's change of use. And then if I go back to that staff report and look at, let's see, pull it up here. It wouldn't be there.
What is this property zoned?
It is zoned C1, neighborhood commercial. Thank you. I'll make sure to bring this every meeting instead of having to do that. Change in use or intensity in all zoning districts except for the C1, the C2A, and the C3 central business, the following shall apply. And then whenever the change of use, the parking shall be provided as required for the new use. If the intensity of any building or lot is increased, then you do have to provide, but the statement here, in all zoning districts except the C1, C2A, and C3, those apply. So it's exempt from off-street parking requirements for the
Point of
change of
clarification,
use.
it's exempt from or exempt because?
Change in use, which is, we would agree this is, in all zoning districts except for C1, C2A, and C3, the following applies. And then it explains that whenever the use of a building or structure or lot is changed, parking and loading areas shall be provided as required by this article for the new use. But it's zoned C1, so it is in that exemption.
I find this a little distressing because basically what you're saying is because there's on-street parking in the area, they don't have to have the requisite number of spaces?
No, it's based on the zoning district only. So if you are, whatever use you are, if you're in that C1 and there's a change of use, the ordinance is saying you do not have to provide required, shall be provided as required by this article for the new use. But that's what it doesn't have to do. If the intensity of use of any building or lot is increased through additional dwelling units, floor area, seating capacity, again, it's exempt for the change of use based on the zoning district. So if it's zone C1, the answer that we tell people is there's no parking requirements calculated. Now, I can turn to the section that speaks to the gas station, and I'll read the requirements for a gas station because it does talk about let me get to it. All right, here. Motor vehicle filling station, 1 per fuel nozzle, plus 1 per employee on the largest working shift. Additional parking shall be provided for convenience stores and other uses operated in conjunction with a service station based on the standards of this section. So if you are a service station in a C2B, which is our highway business, which is intended to be the Euclid and Wilder, then you do have parking standards. If you're in the C1, the C2A, and the C3, you are exempt from the change of use with additional. So that's the way the ordinance reads. There's every opportunity to amend it or to change it, but I'm reading what the current ordinance and the answers that we provide people on the phone. It's what it tells us that they're exempt.
I understand.
Yep.
Now, if this was a McDonald's and it had adequate parking, and then it became a pot shop, it would be a change of use, and the parking requirement was already met based on the previous use. So I can understand how that would work. In this case, we're erecting a canopy over the gas pumps, we're putting in gas pumps, we're putting in a tank. Just because we're not affecting the building proper, we're still seeing a change that I think should be reflected, but we can discuss that later.
Right, that would be in the zoning ordinance. We do have an opportunity to, amend that and make any change to that. The premise of what I've been told is the idea is that those zoning districts, the C1 and those 3, apply to either downtown or the zoning districts of Columbus, which has the on-street parking. It's not perfect because the commercial districts that those designate are on off or have street parking, but not all of those zoning parcels have the same situation. So, yeah, it's an exemption that is been built in. I would say over the years, sometimes it works out to a very good advantage because of the fact that there just is not that parking. And I do believe the comment that I had heard of why the Planning Commission didn't want to have those parking standards like that is because they do recognize the ability of some of those zoning districts to have the on-street parking availability. And the idea, especially in the C3, was that there's either surface parking lots or there's existing on-street parking, but we do not hold anybody to a particular standard for a development in the C3 district either. So.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, could you clarify the intensity of use bit that you spoke of in the first time you read the ordinance?
Say that again.
Could you clarify the intensity of use clause that was in that the first time you read the ordinance? I need to understand that more because as I understood it, if there's an intensity of use change, which in this case, wouldn't there be if it's a gas station with that increased volume?
But yeah, that's where it, here, let me get back to it. I'm sorry, I'll flip back to the, let's see. So this is under B, off-street parking regulations, general regulations. And then number 1 does say off-street parking and loading areas shall be provided as required by this article prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy and uses established effective of this chapter. The second sentence bullet reads, change in use or intensity. in all zoning districts except for the C1, the C2A, and the C3 business districts, the following shall apply. So if it's a C2B, I go to this and then I can continue reading. Whenever the use of a building, structure, or lot is changed, parking and loading areas shall be provided as required by the article for the new use. And then the second of that is if the intensity of use of any building or lot is increased through the addition of dwelling units, increase in floor area, increase in seating capacity, or through other means, additional off-street parking and loading areas shall be provided for such increase in intensity of use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Correct. Now, here's the next catch, is that existing parking facilities. Now, we've had this come up before, but it's in a different scenario, but let me read it. Existing parking facilities. Off-street parking facilities in existence on the effective date of this chapter shall not thereafter be reduced below, or if already less than, shall not be further reduced below the regulations for the use being served. An area designated as required off-street parking, and again, the key term there is required, because of the exemption, there's often times where, we don't do that, but where it is required off-street parking shall not be changed to any other use unless equal facilities are provided elsewhere in accordance with the provisions of this article.
But that doesn't help us here because it's already exempt.
Again, based on the zoning, it is exempt. Well, this one, that section right there does not, that would apply uniformly. A quick situation we have dealt with right now, the Zoning Board of Appeals is going to be asked at their April meeting to split some property. And there's parking on one end, a house in the middle, and then a church on the other end. We had told them that when you make the split, you cannot sell that parking lot as an individual parking lot to another use across the street, which is what we had heard they were proposing to do. In that particular case, it was prevented from taking that existing parking lot and selling it to a multiple family kitty corner from the property, because the idea is that the church did have existing parking, and by the fact of splitting the property, we want to make sure that that parking lot is still connected with the use of the church and not sold to somebody else. So that's how it handles the existing parking facilities.
Through the chair,
So then, go ahead.
just a quick question on this zoning. I can understand the on-street parking along Columbus, along Johnson, on Midland Street, downtown. We're looking at a parcel that is zoned C1. There is no on-street parking on either frontage of this property because those are traffic lanes. So does this even apply in this case?
Again, it's based on zoning district. Right here, change of use in all districts except the C1, C2A, C3. So we don't have to look at those parks. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's what it reads, and that's how it's been applied. And like I said, and there's been some cases where that serves as a benefit to the use that's being proposed, but there's other examples where that's a problem. Having said that, I know, a dance studio, for example, has a high demand on traffic. If they're in a C1 zoning and they get on a small lot and don't even have parking, it's still exempt from that requirement, based on the district itself, not the use or the circumstances of the lot.
My concern, following Mr. Benezek's information or observation is, I'd like to see somebody do an analysis of traffic flow on this lot, given there may be cars parked in the parking spaces right in front of the building. How is that going to work?
The only thing that I will acknowledge is that when the site plan came in for the pre-application, I met with them, advised them to go to the MDOT TSC office while in town and have a conversation, because I know from experience of MDOT and different interpretations of how the curb cuts are going to be either closed or kept. So I advised him to go over to MDOT. One of the first replies that I had from him, the permit person, was that they were going to require a traffic impact study. And I was attempted to, put that in the report, but then they had met together, and then I got a different email. It didn't say that the traffic impact study, that's looking at exiting and entering the property from the right-of-way, and Dennis might be able to explain a little bit of those. I know some of the townships automatically with the new development require that. The city, we have not really seen that too much as far as a traffic impact study. I can only think of one example where maybe that was discussed, but MDOT initially said they were going to do that, but then once the applicant had talked to MDOT, what I wrote in the comments under staff departments, let me go back and see what I wrote there.
Okay, I'm not concerned about impact of Cass or Broadway. I'm concerned on the lot itself.
And I am too, and that's what my report actually does state, because as indicated, there's specific standards for the one-way, 12-foot, two-way, 24-foot. We've got to make that fit in there, or they would have to go to the zoning board. Now, I will say that with a special use, it does require the Planning Commission approval of the special use before it would be taken to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if there is something there, it would have to be taken to the Zoning Board of Appeals, or they would have to have those correct dimensions, because I do not have the authority to waive that. So the site plan does need to clearly show where traffic is moving in the circulation of that. Yeah, we'll just have our discussion and then vote, and then we can talk afterwards. But right now, the Planning Commission is trying to make that decision, so if you could just allow them to do so.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Let's have any further questions before we have a motion? My only observation is, I think, Dennis, you mentioned it before, that the parking space is noted as 18.5 feet, and we require 19, so we've got a deficiency there. Go ahead.
I'm going to move to deny the special use application for SU 25-04 based on the fact that the site plan does not meet any of the requirements of section 122-382B2 as far as dimensionality of parking spaces, cruise lanes, and aisles of access.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Well, the only thing I would strongly recommend is going back to that staff report for the findings of fact, and just make sure that you observe all of those, because there are, in that sample motion that I have at the end, there are some other conditions that should be summarized as part of the motion to help back up those findings of facts. But you'll see, I think there's 3 areas that say reason in red. Those are the types of standards that the Planning Commission, has a discussion on. It's not a yes or no type, does it meet the code? It's the discussion after public comment and the viewpoints of each individual Planning Commission is factored into those findings of facts. And the stronger those are, the stronger the case is as far as the decision-making.
Dennis, would you like to amend your motion?
I will go through the litany. The proposed special use will not impair the public health, safety, or welfare. I feel that the congestion that's going to be caused by the lack of proper dimensions for the spaces on the site for the cruise lanes is going to impair public health and safety. Also, I do not agree that the sidewalk that's on the building on the north side is adequate, because cars will be able to pull over and hit pedestrians in that area. The proposed special use is not appropriate for its proposed location. It's not compatible with the surrounding land uses. It is a single C1 zone parcel, and it can continue to be used as that as long as the requirements of all the rest of the ordinance are met. The proposed special use does apply with the zoning regulations. The proposed special use complies with the applicable standards for specific uses set forth in Article 21. The location and design of the proposed special use does not minimize potential adverse effects on the use of adjacent property. I think there will be definitely some traffic issues in terms of the drives. Loading, parking, delivery, storage, those are not an issue. There may be some odors, nothing that I can say needs to stop this. Noise is going to be increased. Glare is yet to be determined because the canopy is going to be lighted and it is pretty bright. For F, the location and design of the driveways, they are safe in relation to the streets based on what MDOT has agreed to and based on what the city engineer has agreed to. Off-street parking, it complies according to the zoning ordinance. Green belts and landscaping, I would say those will be agreed upon at some point in the future as this moves forward, which includes walls and fences. Signage will have to go through its own special approval for a sign permit. Refuse receptacles, they're adequately screened. As I said, exterior lighting is not shown in this plan, and we do not know the effects on the surrounding properties with whatever lighting is proposed. Access routes to all buildings and structures, they're provided for emergency service vehicles. They can get around the building, and public utilities are provided. So my motion stands.
Support.
I have motion and support to deny case SU 25-04. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I could talk to the owner tomorrow or after the meeting, but it was denied, so it's denied.
Okay, item 6, staff comments. Terry, do you have any comments you want to make?
No, I don't really have an update with where we're at on the subcommittee for the zoning code. The last meeting on the Friday that we met, we were still in the sign code. we're wrapping that up. Right now, we're talking about a survey and just looked at a draft, but really didn't go too far with that. We are gearing up for, but we haven't set the date yet, of a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the City Commission, and then the Giffel Webster, the consultant, is going to do Planning and Zoning 101, just to kind of lay out the different aspects of the zoning ordinance and what the goals are going into amending it or creating a new one. We first talked about having the City Commission get kind of in their positions for, a few weeks, which that time has passed. There was a City Commission meeting on Monday that there was a few City Commissioner members that didn't properly have the understanding of zoning, and that was a little bit of a contentious situation, but got through that. But we need to get that the Planning and Zoning 101 through, because that will be the opportunity, especially for the City Commission, to be able to have that information available to them and kind of set the stage for both the Planning Commission and the City Commission as to what the consultant has been charged to do, and then what we would expect to see once that's initiated. And as I had stated at the last meeting, they did do an analysis of the current zoning ordinance as well as the previous draft unapproved zoning ordinance. So we had them look at both of them. The last meeting, there were still some questions coming back to staff, so it sounds like they weren't 100% done with that analysis, but that is expected to be a printout, which I will gladly share. Hopefully we have that for the April meeting, and then that information would be available. And then also, by then, I've got to start setting up the consultant needs to start coming to a date that works out for everybody. So you would be seeing an email. I think what we decided to do was to just put a date down and hope that it sticks for everybody, because I remember that comment coming up. So we're not going to do a straw poll as to what day works out best, because that we decided would be too difficult. We're just going to pick a date and then hope that that date does work for everybody. But that date is not known yet, so I can't announce that.
To come.
To come, yep, everything is to come.
Okay, we'll be.
But we do have a firm deadline that, this is a grant opportunity that does come with deadlines. I don't have the deadline in front of me, but my idea is that it does have to be completed by, I would say, this time next year. We got 1 year.
I recall February, March, something.
Right, yep.
2025,
Yep.
2026.
And there's some flexibility maybe in there depending on where we're at with it, just like there was with the master plan. But no, I mean, we do expect to meet those timelines. It's just some of those Friday meetings turn into too much on discussion of the sign code, but I do think that has been put to rest. And they're going to have the final draft, and that will automatically move them into the zoning ordinance. And then, as I had said, after Monday night, there's a good opportunity for some training. So Monday night was a good setup for asking for some training.
Any other commissioners have anything they wish to add for the record? I have one item I just want to mention, that City Commission passed a resolution last week that the mayor has vetoed. They will be taking this up again next week. I just bring it up to your attention to make sure that you get an opportunity to research the issue, make sure that your voice is known to your commissioner. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Support.
Motion and support. We are adjourned.